Hello, folks. This is Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our Monday, June 3rd, 2024 council meeting. Start off as I usually do with any sort of big updates, some stuff from the town, tidbits. So today is June 4th. Today is our town special election for the at-large seat. Voting is open right now. So if you're watching this video tomorrow, that'll be in the past. But voting is open today from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Market Street Plaza, at Town Hall on Market Street Plaza. So if you are here in the town of Smyrna, you are an eligible voter, please go down and vote. Please participate. We have very, very low turnout for voting here in the town. It was less than 7% in the election that was a couple of weeks ago. Because this is a special election, it'll very likely be even lower than that. That is not many people in the town so large as Smyrna, of over 13,000, almost 14,000 people. Having such a small percentage of people show up and vote is tough. So please, if you have time, go out and vote today. Probably the next biggest thing that folks need to remember is Smyrna at Night is coming up quickly. It is on Saturday, June 15th. It is an all-day event. It's going to run from noon until 9 p.m. Most folks have seen some of the updates. Smash Mouth is the big band that's going to be playing. There's a lot of great bands that are going to be playing at 3 different stages here in town. Also lots of vendors, food vendors, organizations, stuff all over the place. Please come out and share. Hopefully, this is always finger crossed for this one, that we get some great weather. We usually do. So it should be an awesome night. Come spend some time in downtown Smyrna, see lots of people, have a great time. I'll be out there on Market Street Plaza probably all day. If you want to come say hi or yell at me or whatever you want to do, I'll be there. And then another big piece here, and I think people know this actually came up last night in the town council meeting. There is another vote by the Smyrna School District, which encompasses much more than the town of Smyrna, on their referendum. That is on Thursday this week. It is not, the town of Smyrna has nothing to do with the vote, the school district, the referendum in any way. Though we do have folks come and ask us about that. It is independent of us. It is much representative of a much larger area, and that vote for that referendum is on Thursday this week. You can vote at, I think it's just about all of the schools. I'm not sure. I know that I typically vote at my son's elementary school, at Smyrna Elementary School. But go out. There's another opportunity to participate this week in some of your civic duty and voting in elections and referendums. So, as far as the agenda for last night's meeting, we actually had a lot of items, but most of them were multiple reading or like second or third readings of different ordinances. I'm going to run through them relatively quickly. We had, before I get to that, just general updates from things that were shared from town staff. One of the big ones is we are behind, but have been working on our 2022 financial audit. So every year, the town of Smyrna conducts a financial audit of the town. In 2022, we had a massive amount of change. While we should have been doing the audit, we had the town manager left, the town finance director left. There was a lot of different things, and we were in the middle of switching to a new finance system, meaning it fell behind and it didn't get done. It is just now getting done, more than a year late, or a year late pretty much. The draft of that was sent to town council members last night. I've just barely started reviewing it. It is hundreds of pages of financial reports. There is some text and things. The final version of it will be completed in the next couple of weeks, and then it will come. There will be a presentation of the audit done to town council and an acceptance of the audit by town council. So that's when it will show up on the council agenda in the next couple of weeks. The 2023 audit has already begun. The financial side of that has already begun and will be expected to be done in the fall. The hope is that we are getting caught up. It is very difficult to complete these audits by June because some of it is reliant on financial information from the state and a variety of things. but we are trying to catch up on the audits that we fell behind on, and we're getting closer on that. As far as the agenda items, so we had the first reading of an ordinance. Remember, most ordinances take 3 readings. We had the first reading of an ordinance change to require a criminal history background check for candidates running for the mayor or town council. The draft of this actually looks a lot like what the state just recently adopted, that requires a person who's interested in running to complete a background check. You have to go to the State Bureau of Investigation in order to do this. They'll run that check for you. It is your responsibility to have it conducted and then sent to the town prior to the date that we finalize those people who are going to be on the ballot. So it's a change. It is a change that actually reflects what a number of other communities and what the state does. And last night we had the first reading of that. That will come back to us 2 more times until it is an official code change. And it was approved unanimously. We had the third reading of an ordinance on establishing regulations governing the hiring of relatives of council members, what is often referred to as a nepotism policy. This is the third and final reading of it, so it has now officially been passed and will be integrated into the town code. This basically says that if you are a town council member, members of your family or immediate family cannot be hired on as town staff or placed on town committees. If you are a member of town staff, it does not prevent one of your family members from running and being elected as a council member. We can't stop people from wanting to run and be elected, but it does establish that we cannot hire people whose family members are members of council or the mayor. So that was the third and final reading of that, and it has been adopted and will be integrated into the town code. We had a third reading of an ordinance. This actually is an ordinance that we started on last year. So we've realized we had 2 ordinances that we had not done the third and final reading for. This one was ordinance number 012-23. It updates the town code. I'll say this out. I'll read this. Standard specification and details for water mains, sanitary sewers, storm drains, streets, roads, and electric. So that's the book that was being updated to reduce wastewater calculations to equivalent dwelling units to 250 gallons per day. This is updating the town code to reflect the best practices that the state and the county currently use. When we do calculations, or when our engineers, I say we, but I mean our engineers, do calculations to determine how large a pipe should we put when we're sizing sewer lines and things like that, they use a volume per day per RDU. RDU is residential development unit, so that could be a house, a townhouse, an apartment, wherever people are expected to live as an RDU. So that number was set in our town code at 300 gallons per day. The new recommendations are at 250 gallons per day. There's a variety of reasons why this is, that there are people consuming less water because of lower flow shower heads and things like that. But basically, it's saying we don't need to oversize our pipes as much as they may be being oversized when we're doing those calculations. So it's more of a fundamental change that affects engineers when they're designing water system. The wastewater system doesn't really have any impact on any of the other things like stormwater, streets, roads, or electric. It's really about how do you size the pipes correctly. But it's something that we need to adopt because it's what our engineers will go on and follow when they are doing those calculations for designing wastewater systems. Wonky thing, but something that is in our code, so something that we need to address on occasion. And then the other one was a third reading of an ordinance to amend the Chapter 32 to clarify the authorized use of impact fees. This is another item that, while it has existed, needed some clarifications. Impact fees, and if you go and you watch any of the videos that I did talking about budget stuff, impact fees are a big piece of that. Those are funds that the town collects specifically for capital needs associated with different infrastructure in our community. So water impact fee, sewer impact fee, or water and sewer impact fee is what we call it, electric impact fee, We have a municipal impact fee, and then there are pass-through fees that we collect for the fire department, for the school district, for the ambulance department. Each one of those fees, the pass-through fees we send on to those entities. The ones that the town keeps have very specific rules in what we can use them for, and we need to make sure that our code reflects what those requirements are. Those funds can only be used for capital expenses associated with what they're being collected for. So if we collect, $100,000 in electrical impact fees, those electrical impact fees can only be used for electrical capital infrastructure needs. Not everything is considered a capital infrastructure need. Replacing a transformer that blows, if you're putting in the exact same size transformer, is not a capital expense, it's a repair and maintenance expense. But if a transformer goes and you replace it with a much larger one that can service more and it adds additional capacity, then that may be considered a capital expense. Debt can be a capital expense depending on what you're paying for, if you're paying for the principal versus interest. So there's a lot of calculations, a lot of things that go into it, but we needed to make sure that our code was clarified and was very clear as to what those allowable pieces are. I think that's very, very important, though also very wonky and minute, because we want to make sure that those items are used, or that those capital impact fees are used for the specific items in which they are, which they're collected for. So, and then we had one new business item. This was a broad discussion item. It's actually the second time this has come up. The state, most folks have probably heard this by now, the state has adopted what they call an adult use marijuana law, meaning that the state is going through the process of legalizing the cultivation, processing, testing, and retail sale of marijuana to people over the age of 21. Very much like alcohol and cigarettes, there is a heavy regulatory environment that the state is implementing in order to roll this out. I work in the alcohol industry. There's a whole section, Title IV of the code, that you can go and peruse. This is now being added into Title IV so that you can go and see what all the rules are. If you're very interested and you want to go see all of this, the address is omc.delaware.gov. That is the Office of Marijuana Commissioner. You can go there, review all the code, review everything. They have a whole timeline that's there for when they're going to start issuing licenses, or when they're going to open licensing periods, and then when they will be issuing those licenses. The question for the town of Smyrna, and every town, is do you want to allow any of these types of businesses in your corporate limits? So we discussed this before. It's an area where people have differences of opinion. I will tell you what my opinion is on it. I do not think that prohibiting these businesses writ large, saying there's no way that we would allow any of them, is a good idea. Marijuana, while not everybody wants it, some people certainly are very against it, some people are ambivalent to it, it is, or will be, from the state's perspective, pretty much the same as alcohol and cigarettes. And we allow alcohol and cigarettes in our community. So it is very difficult for me to say that we would allow two of these and not the third, just writ large. I think that does not mean that we should not put reasonable controls and reasonable regulations on these businesses within the bounds of what we're allowed to do from the perspective of the state. So questions like, hey, if you want to allow a marijuana cultivation entity to come into your community, where should it be? What requirements should be placed on that entity to make sure that their actions don't diminish the quality of life? If you've gone to different communities that have these, there are ones that are built outside and they have big, huge fences and lots of security. There are ones that are built inside and have lots and lots of security and other things. But like questions about like the smell comes up, right? That is one that I think many communities that have done this before us have had to deal with. And they didn't know how much that odor from the cultivation and processing activities would spread and impact their community. And then they're trying to go back and add in regulations about putting in air processing and testing and all that kind of stuff. We now have the benefit of knowing what those things are. So as we look to allow things like this, we might be able to create those requirements and say, hey, yes, it's a permitted use within this area if you meet these specific requirements. A lot of questions like that I think need to be addressed. As I said, I'm not against a prohibition on this. I think that it is, just as alcohol and tobacco are here, this is a part that's going to exist whether we allow it or not. It is already being consumed by members of our community. I don't care for the smell of it, but you can walk down the street and smell it at any point in time, and that's perfectly legal, and it's not going to change. You can also walk down the street and see a building with a window full of bongs and tons of marijuana paraphernalia that is unregulated by us, because it is a retail establishment and they're allowed to do that. If we can allow that in our town, I find it very, very hypocritical to say that we won't allow another adult use product that is perfectly legal for everyone in our town to consume. So what we did is we had a discussion about this. The action that the town took was to formally ask our Planning and Zoning Commission to research and define the zoning regulations that they think would best protect the town while allowing these businesses to come in some sort of a controlled manner. The first of the licensing periods for this, for cultivation licenses, goes out in September. So we've got a couple of months by which we can get this done before any licenses are even considered. We don't know anybody who is planning on opening a facility or is interested in opening a facility like this, but that doesn't mean that it's not coming, and I think that we ought to consider it. Another piece is, as far as the town is concerned, like I've mentioned this lots of times, we get our revenue from two sources, right? We get it from utilities, water, sewer, and electric, and we get it from taxes. We have a very, very large industrial park to the north side of town that is mostly empty. The owners of that park, KRM, are open to these sort of businesses locating in their park. Especially on the cultivation side, they would use a lot of water and a lot of electricity, both of which are things that help the town because those are areas where we derive revenue. They also would be building buildings and hiring people and adding on to our tax base so that the tax base is growing and hopefully the tax rate does not have to grow. So I think that there is a space in here where there is a net win for our community if it is done well, with consideration for kind of the same considerations that go into licensing alcohol. Cigarettes is a little bit more of a free-for-all, unfortunately, even though if you were to walk around our town, cigarette butts, vape cartridges are probably some of the most prevalent garbage that you're going to see. You watch people throw garbage out of their windows, cigarette butts out of their window all day long, but we don't regulate cigarettes in any reasonable way, even though I think that is a significant detriment to the overall image of our community. So that's my feelings on that. So those are the major agenda items. We did have an executive session. After an executive session, typically if there's a vote, it has to do with something that is private under the executive session. On occasion, we actually have something that comes out of executive session where there is a specific approval that is public. So we actually had one of those last night. That is the lieutenants of our police department, of which we have 3 lieutenant positions, 2 of which are filled, 1 of which is open, have elected to form a collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters, and we have been negotiating with them on their first contract. That first contract was presented to the council last night, and the council voted to approve that contract. So that's what actually happened in executive session at the end of the meeting, because nobody was still there, just us. So those are the big items from the council meeting last night. As always, I'm happy to answer questions, provide more information. We did have a lot of folks, obviously more people have showed up to council meetings than have ever showed up before, which is both good and bad, because I wish that people were showing up in droves 3 or 4 months ago while we were debating the taxes and the budget. Now they're all showing up because they're unhappy about the taxes and the budget. There's a lot of things there. There's a years and years and years of considerations. You can go, you can watch my perspective on this in the videos that I've posted on here before. I don't think anybody is happy about having to raise the town taxes, but I don't think anybody would be happy about allowing the town to drive itself into bankruptcy either. But a lot of the folks that are coming up and asking about things are, how do we manage this? How do we better communicate what these things are? And I think there are a lot of legitimate concerns and a lot of legitimate questions. The town does not have a communications and marketing person. We are big enough that we should. Now that involves paying another person. It involves an additional cost to the residents of this town to have better communication, because we don't have a dedicated person that's doing that work. I disagree with that. I've advocated for that since I joined council, that we should have somebody in that position, but that has not come to bear. So our communication is absolutely lacking, and I think a lot of people brought that up last night, that we do not do a good job communicating about this. On the other side, there is an element to this that is individual and public responsibility. Everything goes up on Facebook, everything goes out in the town tidbits, the meetings are all posted. At some point, the town can only do so much. I don't think that we're not advocating saying that we're doing enough. I think we can do more. At the same time, there will still be people who don't get the message, even though it's in WBOC and it's been reported in a variety of places. I think we should do more on the communication side, and I am, again, advocating for putting somebody in that position to act as a full-time communications and marketing person to assist the town and help sort of alleviate some of these. And then other questions, as individuals are coming to the town talking about the burden that the new tax is placing on them, we are trying to work with as many people as we can to help them, one, understand how we ended up here, and two, figure out how to make sure that we mitigate the impact of this as much as we can. At the same time, the town has to pay its bills. We have to invest in our infrastructure. We have to pay into our pension system. We have to be able to pay staff enough that they don't leave. All of those are things that required a significant change to the way that the town finances itself. And we got the unfortunate, opportunity to be the ones to take that. So I hope people continue to show up. It is nice to have people engaged. I hope that people use that engagement and participate in more things in our community. But thank you for those who do show up and are polite. Not everybody is polite. They're in the meetings or on Facebook here, but we certainly do appreciate the feedback. So thank you. That's all I've got for you today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Looks like nice weather. Don't forget, Smyrna at Night is coming up June 15th. It will be a great day. I keep looking up like this because my calendar's up there. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care.